Welcome to the sixth edition of the Black Blockchain Summit. My name is John Wanaina Karanja, CEO of Melanin. And with me, I have host of the summit, Mr. Sinclair Skinner, and our esteemed guest, Arthur Hayes. I think I'd like to begin with brief introductions. Maybe we can start with Arthur.
Sure. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back. I think this is the second year that I've done this. I was formerly the CEO of BitMEX, one of the first Bitcoin cryptocurrency derivatives exchanges. I'm now on the board. I haven't sold any of my stock or anything, but me and my co-founders took a step back with the management team running everything. I spend most of my time now at my family office called Maelstrom, and we do a variety of early stage investments in decentralization projects, token projects. And I also have a public policy arm where we do some financial literacy outreach and curriculum design for right now US public schools. So that's sort of what I've been up to over the past sort of year, and a brief introduction of myself.
Awesome. Arthur. Sinclair?
Yeah. Again, everybody, thank y'all for joining us, and we're just so blessed to have you. Good brother, big brother Hayes, has been in the space for literally years and years. And again, I think, that's sometimes one of the things that's difficult. People don't realize, like, it's been a short period of time in this whole blockchain since the white paper. But again, you've been a pioneer in the space, understanding that journey. Again, we've had you on before, but it'd be very helpful if you just give us that little taste of how you made that journey here for the folks that just joining the blockchain summit for the first time, even though we've done that 6-year mark.
Sure. So a very brief history. So I was a finance student at UPenn, Wharton School of Business, like many years ago, 15 years ago now, class of 2008. I then moved out to Asia, where I worked for Deutsche Bank and Citibank, trading exchange traded funds and futures contracts on a lot of the large equity indices in Asia. I got fired from my job in 2013, read the white paper, and then decided that I was going to be in the cryptocurrency Bitcoin space. I traded my own money for a bit, and then decided with my other two co-founders to start BitMEX, which was basically a platform to trade derivatives, which is my background. And I wanted to create a platform that I wanted to trade on as a trader. I think our biggest claim to fame is the invention of the Bitcoin perpetual swap, which I guess is the most traded product ever in cryptocurrencies. Every single exchange that you've heard of trades a variety of the thing that we invented, and it basically powers the cryptocurrency derivatives market. And then subsequent to my time at BitMEX, as I mentioned before, I started a small family office where me and a few other individuals invest in different sort of token projects and decentralization technology across the whole space. So, crypto's been my life since 2013. It's been a wild ride. I enjoy it thoroughly, especially the people that I get to meet. And I really want to help bring this technology to everybody in the world. And hopefully we can change the way things are done and how we organize ourselves, both at a political standpoint and in terms of how humanity interacts with money.
Awesome. Our theme this year is peaceful solutions to violent world problems. And we did a quote from Cameron Winklevoss, and he talked about Bitcoin is a monetary system that requires no violence to work. There's nobody going to twist somebody's arm. We don't beat folks in the head. We don't call the IRS. The whole bunch of things that has allowed us to be a part of this community and know that its magnitude's better than the status quo. When you're looking at your growth in the space, and now with some of the things that you're doing, you're talking about your family office, over this last year since we talked to you, what are some of the things that you see that now are your priorities? I think as we go through these different phases of life, sometimes we kind of like shift some things around, but sometimes we might even double down on some of those things. In a high 30,000 feet, what are some of your priorities now as you see over the last years of what you're doing? And again, the thing you said about the financial literacy in the community, I mean, again, I think that's an awesome point. but your innovativeness and the way you've been kind of pushing in an aggressive way is also something that's is so important to us. So what you got,
So I
man?
think a lot of people lose sight about why Bitcoin and the whole ecosystem is special, right? Why do we have these networks that are worth, hundreds of billions of dollars and maybe trillions at some point, whatever, is that we're trying to create a censorship resistant, decentralized, economic system. And it's really, really hard to do that. It's really expensive in terms of the amount of energy you have to spend to make these sort of systems, because it's much easier to have a centralized database and to send value around, which is what we do currently, right? And we have what I call the cartels of trust: governments, banks, auditors, insurance companies, all these people that we have to place trust in because they're the ones who make payments go from point A to point B. And it's good in some ways and bad in others. But if we want to change it to the people basically coming together and saying, okay, we're going to, through a method of consensus, determine what's a valid transaction, it's obviously extremely difficult and hard. And it's much easier to take the shortcut of, proclaiming that we're doing decentralization, but in the back end, just having a centralized entity. And so I think a lot of people lose sight of that. And why is Bitcoin valuable? It's not valuable because it's worth, however, $20,000, $30,000, whatever it's worth, when you can go on, whatever your favorite exchange and trade it. It's worth something because we've endeavored to create this decentralized system. Same for Ethereum and some of the other sort of virtual machines that are out there. So we're very focused on technology that sort of helps solidify this base of decentralization and that infrastructure that is essential for that. Because if all we're going to do is create another financial asset, then I should just go trade on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or the Hong Kong Futures Exchange or whatever, right? It's much easier. It's cheaper right now. And I can get the same sort of exposure. And I think people sort of lose sight of that. And that's why we're focused on this sort of technology. Because if you actually get some of these pieces right, not only does it actually bolster the value proposition of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, but if you're early, obviously you can make a lot of money, right? And so it's sort of a two-pronged effect. Because if we lose sight of the actual thing that we're trying to create, then, when BlackRock comes in and has an ETF and it holds a bunch of Bitcoin, like, what have we actually accomplished? Why have we struggled for 10 years with this technology if all we're going to do is just hand it right back over to the same people that we're trying to disintermediate? So that's the kind of technology that we're trying to foster, and obviously we're trying to make money as well.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why we would label you one of our freedom fighters, because again, I think you're right. In the early days, our first project with BitMari was a remittance project with Zimbabwe, where we got a remittance license from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to remit cash using Bitcoin. And our thought was that, look, we're going to we don't need MoneyGram. We don't need Western Union anymore. Look, we didn't even think about the value of the token. We was like, if Western Union's making all this money sending stuff back and forth, and they're charging these crazy predatory rates, we could just make it fair and literally give value to everybody in the system and do something better. And what I'm seeing now, though, is the banks are really the ones who seem like they're going to take control. Like even some of the regulatory hurdles that, as a startup, some of the requirements that we've seen being, offered as ways that you can actually, be a part of the ecosystem, you would have to have a very large, well-financed, company in order to, again, I'm not just talking about anti-money laundering, AML or KYC, but to do all the checks and verifications that are necessary to meet their requirements. It would then create a situation where maybe it ends up back in the hands of some of these larger banks. And I think people like you have shown a way that we don't need those large entities. There's enough innovation, enough ways to leverage this technology. Do you see that? Is there a way that we can challenge the direction that we're going in, or do you think it's something? I mean, in South Africa, I learned this word, they call it state capture, where the state is basically controlled by the moneyed folks. Like we go to war all the time because the people who make weapons or selling more weapons. Like, they say follow the science. It may be follow the money, and then you kind of figure out the politics in it. And anyway, and again, I'm not putting words in my mouth, so don't let me do that because I'm not trying to do weird. My point is, where do you see us going as it relates to the issue of us as the masses in a decentralized, open source utility of this technology versus the centralized big banks coming in and be the facilitators of these transactions?
So I think the first point is we obviously have to accept the fact that if we actually want to offer a system that's open for all, then the big banks and TradFi institutions should be able to use this technology, right? It's not we need to figure out a way to ban them. No, because if that's the case, then we haven't really accomplished anything. So our value proposition to the general public has to be so strong that yes, while a large TradFi institution might hold billions and soon to be trillions of dollars worth of crypto assets, the people own more of it. And we determine the rules because the rules that give this value are what we say they are, right? That only happens if we actually value the solutions that are being built and they have any sort of, relevance for us, rather than, okay, I just want to own some Bitcoin because it's gone up in price, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can own Bitcoin that's gone up in price in a custodian ETF, or you can own it in your own wallet. And so we have to teach people that, okay, maybe there is a situation where my retirement account, for legal reasons, can only invest in these custodians. Cool, whatever. We're not going to change that. But if you actually care about having your own financial freedom and you've been educated to understand the difference, you're not going to keep your own capital in one of these products. You're going to custody it yourself and understand, okay, there's challenges to that, but there's also benefits, right? You're not going to end up like, some Russian oligarch who thought he was a billionaire. And then when his boy Putin decided to invade Ukraine, he found out he was worth nothing. And I think that's the people sort of recognize the value of the technology of Bitcoin, right? It's, you thought you had something, but you're just a renter of your assets in the traditional financial system. And that works for a lot of people until it doesn't. And so people have to see these situations and not say, okay, that's a bad Russian. If you're in the West, it's, wow, that could happen to me too. Maybe I should rethink how I'm thinking about my situation, and possibly use Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of these other assets to, change some part of that equation that I can change. And that's the recognition that needs to happen. It's not that, oh, we need to ban the institutions or they're bad or this or that, right? If it's an open peer-to-peer decentralized payment system, then everybody should be able to use it. And we shouldn't be able to, and we should not lose the ethos of what Satoshi envisioned in his white paper just because some very wealthy people in fiat terms decided that this is an asset class that they'd like to participate in.
What about the fact that they even, and I know people wash and do certain things, and so they kind of obfuscate some of the information when they try to track this. But the fact that now they can kind of go back and say, well, any address related to this, I'm going to do bad things to you. So we're now able to capture, we know that this is the address you've been using, and you touched this, and you didn't touch it, but the person that touched it. So you bad person too. Are these things that again become difficult for us to?
Well, again, it's a choice, right? This is the blockchain. This is what it is. It's been the same. It's not like this is a new issue, right? It's that people recognizing an issue that people have been talking about since transparency and payments has existed, right? Cash is completely anonymous, right? And certain people like that, certain people don't like that. This is one of the situations where cash is superior in a online system, is that you can't do that. You can't sort of take a fungible asset and then break it up and balkanize it because 3 steps away somebody did something bad with it, possibly, depending on who you ask, right? So are we going to build true privacy into the Bitcoin architecture or Ethereum or one of these architectures? I don't know, right? That's going to be a vote of the users of the system to say, do I value this, right? And it's not going to be a choice that's free. There's going to be a cost associated with that. So again, I don't know what the solution is or the answer is. It's, what do we as a community value? Do we want that type of privacy or do we not want that type of privacy? What are the trade-offs? But at least we get to decide. Whatever the decision is, we made that decision. And so knowing these problems exist, what are we as a community going to do about it? And while, that's not the most comforting answer to somebody, it's better than the traditional system where you get zero say in what the rules are. You were born and there are these banking rules and you got to follow them. And that's that, right? You're not changing them. Versus here, you can vote, you can make your voice heard. You can try to create a different system. Now, whether or not we create something better, that's really up to us.
Right, and it goes back to self-determination, liberation. There are responsibilities. I'm picking up what you're putting down on that. I think that humbly. Now, as it relates to teaching and financial literacy, I've been really getting a lot of pushback from some of my. Okay, I'm leftist, so let me just say I'm definitely an extremist. But with that being said, when we start talking about financial literacy, it seems like we oftentimes start in the middle of the movie. We don't start at the beginning. We almost make it acceptable, or we make it that capitalism is the actual only system that we should have. We make it seem like capitalism existed since the beginning of human existence, as opposed to actually having a real conversation about, again, how is value exchanged? How do we communicate with each other? How do we trust each other? People. I've even heard people, just dispute the whole barter system, like that never existed. It's always been a ledger. It's always you borrowed some sugar from me, and I got some flour from you. It was never half a horse, a third of a horse. And then even the conversation about us being a part of a communal environment, it wasn't necessarily a capitalist environment. Colonialism, all the things that made us have our strange surnames, Skinner, Hayes. I don't know if I'm really Skinner. I don't know if you really. I know you Hayes, brother. I'm clear. You're not Isaac Hayes, but you definitely Hayes. But my point is, they'll start getting at me and say, Sinclair, you're trying to get this system is inherently only meant for 3 people to win off the masses of the people. So just trying to teach our folks to financial literacy out of that. Tulsa, Oklahoma had some folks with some money. They bombed them. They killed. Like, we're not going to financial our way out of this. We're going to have to come up with another. We may. This is what they would interject, because I would push back on any system, social. We can always come up with a new one. So the conversation of financial literacy, when you think of it, or when you put it together, where do you start? Do you start saying, hey, this current system, I want you to master this? Or do you take them from like, okay, how do we best interact with each other as human beings? And can we ever reconstruct it?
I think ideally we'd like to go all the way to like, what is money? Like, why is this piece of paper? Why can you go down to the store and take this worthless piece of paper and buy a carton of milk or chicken or eggs or whatever, right? To go all the way back to that and explain from first principles that, right? But, the woman who runs the public policy arm of Maelstrom, she's been in Indonesia for a few months. And, she's gone into like very, very poor orphanages and high schools, and they're not ready for that. They just need to know how to do a budget, right? So it really depends on where you are on the spectrum. If you can't even understand, like, I make X and I spend Y, and the rest leftover is savings, like talking about the theoretical construct of what money is kind of lost on you. So we need to meet people where they are, which is kind of why, the course that we're actually selling and, testing out in the US is aimed towards high school kids, right? And because they have a little bit more experience, they've seen money before, they've seen the good things and the bad things about it. Maybe they have, a parental home situation that is either impacted in a positive or negative way by money, right? And so I think we can go a little bit deeper onto like, what is this piece of paper? Why can't you just write your name on it and say, here, take my money and let me buy something, right? Why can't you do that? I think if you start there, then it sort of unravels as to all these different sort of things. You don't really even touch on the economic isms of the day, because they don't really matter at that point, because every ism has some sort of currency that underpins, and usually it's issued by the state, right? And so regardless if it's capitalism, socialism, fascism, communism, right, there is a currency, it's controlled by the state. And so that's pretty standard. And so we don't really have to touch on, how do you organize property rights and all this sort of stuff, right? But again, you have to meet people where they are. I would love to have that kind of conversation with everyone, but again, people's situations preclude them from having that.
Thank you, Brother Hayes. Look, hey, John, go ahead. Anyway, all right, John, what you got?
Yeah,
I'm giving I'm having help me. I'm writing stuff down to help me. So, I'm being kind of person. So let me just leave that alone. John, go ahead. Do it for the people. I humbly.
I think that was a very interesting conversation between the both of you. I think I would like to cover more of the actual things that happened in the past year. I think we saw a lot of the centralized entities start to unravel, talking about FTX, and I know you had predicted the situation with Sam Bankman.
Actually, no, I did not predict it. I was, I never really dealt business with him, so I didn't really have an impacted per se. But I looked askance, like, okay, this guy is doing things. Maybe he's a good trader, maybe he's not. But I can see the game he's running, and he's a good operator in one particular aspect. Obviously, he's a terrible trader in mismanagement, but can't, we've learned that.
Yeah, so we saw Celsius and BlockFi and a few others also unravel. Some people get liquidated. What are your thoughts? I know you've talked about decentralization being really very important, but what are your thoughts about the sort of the macro of the crypto sector? Is BlackRock just another evolution of centralization? Could they face potential issues in the future by, say, holding so much Bitcoin in terms of security? What are your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin has graduated, in crypto in general, to an asset that's firmly within the overarching global financial system, right? And so when you're in a very credit-based system like we are in today, and the number one central bank, which is the Federal Reserve, raises interest rates, people go bankrupt because a lot of people have a levered trade on. Now, it's either, okay, it's usually a form of, I'm going to borrow from somebody at a rate and do something with it. And what do I do with it? Whatever the new hot thing is of that particular era, right? It could be railroads in 1873, 1903. It could be radios, 1929 RCA. It could be mainframe computers. It could be the Nifty 50. It could be savings and loans. It could be regional banks. It could be crypto and NFTs, right? It's all the same thing, right? I'm borrowing money. I'm doing something with it. But when the cost of borrowing goes up, those who have too much leverage in a mismanaged business go bankrupt. And so in the crypto space, just about every single lender went bankrupt because their incentive was, I'm a VC-backed company. I need to grow. There's only so many borrowers who are really doing something where I can lend that's actually, they can pay it back, right? And usually it's an exchange or a mining company who can pay back natively in crypto. They don't need money because they make money. So who are we lending money to? A bunch of Muppets like Kyle and Sue at Ferreros, or just, bad speculators, right? Writ large, right? And so that's what they did, because that was the incentive. I need to be a VC company. I need to grow. I need to have a biggest loan book. I have these billions of dollars that gets raised. Like, what do I do with it? I need to lend it, right? And so what do? They made bad loans. And when the interest rates went up, boom, they went bankrupt. So it's a standard story, nothing new. It was just, in our space in crypto this time versus another space. In terms of, what we've learned, hopefully we've learned, understand how you're getting that yield. Terra Anchor was offering 20% yield on Terra. How do they do it, right? Don't just say, oh yeah, it's 20%. That's great. It's better than the zero I'm getting in my bank account. These guys are fucking magical. No, they're not.
Right.
Just ask some questions. So, I mean, it's just humanity. It's nothing new. We're going to do it again. I don't know what the next one's going to be. In terms of the risks that we're facing on these centralized custodians, right? So this is, one thing that I think is going to be the risk is, okay, let's say that BlackRock or Fidelity or Vanguard or pick your large asset manager globally, right? They come in, they amass billions and maybe trillions, whatever. Hopefully the ecosystem is worth 100 trillion and they've got $1 trillion. Great. Everybody's rich, right? They got $1 trillion of crypto. Guess who I'm going to rob? BlackRock. If I am, some sort of state actor or hacking group, am I going to fuck around with like $1 billion, or am I going to try to hammer BlackRock and any of these asset managers who are regulated to hold trillions of dollars in a single point of failure solution? I'm going to spend all my money and all my effort trying to hack them, and they will succeed, because you just can't be perfect all the time when you have that sort of concentration of risk. Right. And it's usually not a technological solution. It's a social solution. It's getting somebody to download a fishy file on, from like some sort of social media platform or a phished email. That's not how you hack. You don't hack the technology. They're going to have great technology, but the middle office person who makes $50,000 a year, do they give a fuck if Larry Fink loses a few $1 billion? No. So that is the person that's going to get hacked. And you're creating a situation where we're going to welcome, and not we, I'm saying, financial regulators are great. They have a custodian, they've separated the duties, they've done exactly how they do it in the traditional space. But in the traditional space, if you steal a bunch of money, you can essentially just print it, just Control P, Control C, Control V, and print the money and give it back to them, and everybody's cool. But in crypto, you can't do that. And so that's going to be a big risk. How they handle it is going to make or break their crypto business. I don't think people truly appreciate the amount of effort that you have to go into to harden one of these custodian services, especially if it grows to hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars that one entity controls. That could be the risk in the 2025-27 cycle. I don't know.
Wow. So how do you recommend people go about securing their assets? I'm thinking of sort of a small person like myself. I would like to leave my crypto savings to my children in the future. Is the technology there?
The technology is there. It just takes a lot of effort, right? You can go down the rabbit hole. You can have the crypto steal and the vault in some country underground, blah blah blah, right? You can encrypt your private keys and pass around the shards to different trusted individuals. You can use hardware wallets, right? So there's solutions. They all require effort. It's not like, oh, let me just pay this person $10 a month and they've sorted it all out. Like, no, they haven't sorted shit out. So you have to, if you really want to be your own financial institution, then these are the sorts of things you have to think about. And it can get quite annoying sometimes. But that's what you want to do. Or you can hand your money to somebody else. In most cases, you'll be fine, but you could not be fine. And you have no one to blame but yourself, because again, this is self-deterministic, right? You choose how you want to store your assets. There's no redo button. There's nobody to complain to, and so some people don't like that, which some people cite as the hindrance to adoption. But again, that's sort of the whole point of what we're trying to do here.
Right, not your keys, not your cheese. So we have a non-custodial wallet that we've had since 2016, Bill Murray, on Apple and Android. And again, I'm guilty. I left some money on exchange, and they got me for about 50 Bitcoins. And they did have the Secret Service. It was a cat out of Florida, young kid. It was real crazy, but they were able to get. They settled and gave us like some money back. He had hit a bunch of folks, and it was a SIM swap where they literally got in on my. I was using AT&T, bro, and this got weird. I was in Zimbabwe.
Do not use phone SMS verification anywhere in the world. There's just
right. I tell people that whole thing about, and then even the long password. I said they don't even need your password. They're just gonna go by that, and then they literally got your phone number, bro, and it's all bad. And that two-factor authentication, devil. So no, it's not the devil, but I'm saying it takes more than that. Like you said, I think self-determination requires a lot more. Just like, again, liberation, when we were countries and as a people, us liberating ourselves, we got to make trains run on time. We got to make sure there's water. There's like real responsibility for having your own stuff, and sovereignty is real. Right? We definitely believe in some self-sovereignty at the Black Blockchain Summit. So thank you for encouraging us on that. I apologize for that. He struck me when he was talking about being responsible. So I just had to give my testimony. Brother John, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we've seen the intersection of AI and crypto. And I think here in Kenya, there was a huge furore with WorldCoin. They came to Nairobi, they set up all the stations with the orb, and we saw hundreds of thousands of people lining up to get their eyes scanned, to get the $70 worth of crypto. Because as you can imagine, in a sort of a developing country like Kenya, that's maybe somebody's rent or somebody's monthly income. And the government sort of panicked and they shut it down, and they raided the WorldCoin agents here with the police. So what are your thoughts on, number one, WorldCoin and AI in general, and the interplay with crypto? Is this a positive development? Are you using AI yourself, like ChatGPT, in your organizations? What would you say about sort of this fast-paced?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting situation, right, with WorldCoin. And I to be fair, I've read about 75% of Vitalik's paper on it, and he discusses pros and cons and blah, 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 in a lot more technical detail. No, I think the overarching goal what they're trying to accomplish is, okay, we need to have a way to determine who is a human, right? And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? If you think about, there's going to be all these different economic AI agents all over the place. Most of our life is now conducted over the internet. How do we know who's who? How do you know you're talking to a machine or you're talking to a human? Great. I mean, that's a sci-fi concept that's beaten to death, right? And there's all different types of solutions. Now, the interesting part about this is you have a bunch of Silicon Valley tech bros onboarding people in developing countries because they probably couldn't get away with some of this stuff due to data privacy laws where they're from. So they're going to try it out somewhere else. And I think hats off to Kenya for saying, we don't want this in our or we want to get paid for it. Maybe there was something, well, okay, you're giving us all this money to people, like, where's our cut? I don't know. At the end of the day, right? But at the end of the day, it's data is now the new commodity. And if you're looking for unstructured data in different places, you're going to have to get it where you can. And a lot of countries are now saying, no, we don't want you doing things to our database of humans and what they're interacting with. For whatever reasons, doesn't matter. Like you have GDPR in Europe, China doesn't allow certain countries' apps to run in its country, right? US is trying to do some of the same with TikTok, potential bans and blah, blah, blah. So there's data nationalism going on because, again, everyone recognizes the data is the attention, the interactions, that's the real value. Why is Google valuable, right? It's because they they touch all aspects of our internet presence and they take all that attention and they build products out of it to sell you ads, right? And so how do you as a country make sure that you're getting proper remuneration for all this data that could be used to train AIs that companies domiciled in another country who pay no taxes where you're from are going to monetize? It's a political question at the end of the day. I don't know what the answer is. I do think that there's obviously sort of this, like, you could say a neo-colonialism, but in the data construct, like, okay, yeah, we're going to have a bunch of American dudes come over to Kenya and try this out. And then, fuck that.
I think our ancestors are warning us. Our ancestors been like, we've been here before. They came for the land, now they come for data. It's the same hustle. And we always, okay, sure, the land, who can take land? Air, land, it doesn't have, no, come on, you can. And then you see where we ended up. Now we're doing the same thing with our eyeballs. Okay, what's these eyeballs? Okay, it's the same, like 500 years, and we still ain't learned who these folks are. Like we literally were like stumbling with like we have a trend. They're consistent. Like it's not even like they change it up. They came again. Now it's data. Like data, land. Like I apologize. But yeah, I'm thinking of it.
But I mean, AI is with us. It's here. It's now you have to live with it. There's no going back. There's no like, I'm going to ban AI. No, you're not going to ban shit, right? It's here. AIs are not nationalistic entities. They don't understand any of these cultural constructs. I want data. Where's the data? The data is there. I'm going to go get it, right? And they don't give a fuck about history and all these other human and political things, right? There's a database. I need it to be a better AI. I'm going to go get it. And they will succeed at the end of the day, right? It's a computer. They're better than us at just about everything. And so I think you're naive to think that, no, there's going to be a way to prevent any of this sort of development. And so you have to sort of adapt to that and think of solutions. And obviously I made a big, essay series about how I think AIs will interact using crypto and why it makes more sense for them to use a cryptographic monetary system versus a human legal state-based currency like fiat currency, even if fiat currency trades on blockchain rails like a CDBC or something like that. But at the end of the day, AI is going to transform our entire existence and what it means to be human. I don't know what that's going to be in a few decades, but it's going to happen. And so Right now, what I'm thinking about is making sure that as an investor, especially at Maelstrom, we don't overpay for stuff, right? Because you saw this in the 2000, internet infrastructure boom, right? Cisco systems and all these different players are going to build all this fiber optic, and we're going to connect 7 billion people in the world. They're going to use internet, and everyone's going to make a fuck ton of money, right? And so you'd be paying sort of silly multiples for earnings. And I don't know what Nvidia traded now, like 200 or 300 times, right? Something you've seen, right? But at the lower end of like the startup scene, you're seeing, okay, well, I couldn't raise money as whatever I actually do. So I'm just going to slap AI on it and go to the investors. And most of the investors are dumb because, again, they just they need to deploy money to earn management fees. If you're not deployed, you're not making money. So fuck it, just give it to them, right? It doesn't matter if most of them are going to lose it. You don't get paid unless you try. So you're going to overpay for growth. I think AI mania is going to be the biggest mania that we've seen in human history, because I argue there's going to be the combination of the fiat collapse, the last gasp of money printing to save the sovereign debt markets of the world, combined with, oh my God, AI is going to change what it means to be human and how we interact and how we do it, commerce over thinking machines and internet connected machines. And that's just going to lead a boom that we've never seen before. And it's like, oh my God, everything, AI this, AI that. The AI stocks are going to be going nuts. AI tokens are going to be going nuts. Everybody's going to be an AI company. They're going to wake up in a few years, and 99% of all these companies are going to be worth nothing, because what are the economic? Who's paying for this stuff, right? Where is the actual value? Now, obviously, in 10, 20 years, there'll be a few Amazons and Googles and Facebooks and all these different types of companies who built a real product, but we don't know what those are right now. And so as investors, we have to be very careful to make sure that we don't buy into the hype and assume that in 2 years we're going to bring forward 100 years of sort of development of humanity, right? So that's sort of my take on AI.
Wait,
Awesome.
John said, are you using it for anything currently? Where do you see?
No, not really. I mean, just I'll casually check something out. I haven't tried ChatGPT or any sort of editing stuff that use it. But I mean, I know people who have it. It definitely works. It saves people time. It's going to be transformative. I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, my personal assistant uses it, and has been, as far as capacity and being able to get more done, super awesome. But yeah, but that's ChatGPT. But I'm still suspicious of all things. Okay, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think let's also talk about some of the technologies you've talked about or written about. The first one would be sort of a decentralized stablecoin. Could you go a bit more into that?
Yeah, so I think the stablecoins are obviously very useful, right? We want to be able to use a fiat representation, but not have to rely on the slow and expensive TradFi banking system. So, it started with Tether, and there's MakerDAO and a bunch of other these things. Oh, we're going to put a dollar representative token on a blockchain. So now the dollar can move, instantaneously 24/7. Great concept. And obviously Tether and BNB and BUSD or whatever it's called, and Circle have amassed close to $100 billion worth of value that's custodied with them. But the problem is, at a fundamental level, you're saying, hey, bank, give me a bank account so I can completely disintermediate your business model, which doesn't make any sense. Like, why would the banking system not just do this themselves? Like, Tether's making $1 billion per quarter with like 5 employees. Like, good on them. Like, great business. I wish I was doing it myself. But like, if you're the banker saying like, look, you're like, oh, these guys make all this fucking money, and literally they cannot exist without me, the bank, because they need to park this money somewhere. Hold on 1 second. So at one level, we need to say, okay, how are we going to create a crypto equivalent? I don't think that we can go full decentralized. And so I said, okay, well, we could create a synthetic dollar with derivatives and Bitcoin, or derivatives and Ethereum. So I put this paper out there. I don't know, read it last year, and the Athena guys picked it up, and a guy named Guy, and they're building a, I call it pseudo decentralized stablecoin, where the token is pegged at $1. How do they achieve that peg? They take in ETH and they hedge it. They take in staked ETH and hedge it, and so they earn the staking yield, which is about 4 to 5%. plus they earn the futures basis on ETH dollar, which is like, I don't know, 5 to 10%, whatever it is, right? So now they have a positive net interest margin, and then they have, through derivatives, a stable coin that's pegged at $1. And so this is sort of, and there's other people doing the same thing, because it's not a very complicated concept. But the point is, we can't have a stable coin that takes all our revenue from banks and hands it to some like crypto company and expect the banks not to be like, why would I fucking allow you guys to do this? Because it makes no sense from their standpoint that, you know, these guys are paying them, I don't know, maybe a few $1,000s a year as a bank maintenance fee, and these guys make $1 billion a quarter. Like, I don't know. If I was a bank executive, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, or I want to cut, right? So we need to have a solution which, fine, it relies on cryptocurrency exchanges, and the exchanges make money because of trading fees for people trading the derivatives that back these things up. Fine, but at least it's a trading pair that helps the ecosystem, and the ecosystem players are the ones who are providing the base level service, versus, you know, the industry that we're antagonizing and trying to completely replace is essential for the operation of the stablecoin itself, which, you know, when you think about it, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So how does that tally with sort of the more scrutiny on centralized exchanges, such as Coinbase and I believe Binance as well? How do you see that evolution of these stable coins that are being backed by crypto?
Well, I think at some point the banks, and you're starting to see, I think JP Morgan is rolling out a JP Morgan coin. Like it's not hard for them to do this. Like, but again, it's the first bank who does it is going to capture all the value. So, you know, Jamie Dimon has given the green light to do this, and JP Morgan really goes strong. We're going to create a US dollar that's literally just dollars sitting in JP Morgan, and we're going to give that to people to use across the world. Then they'll completely destroy. Why would I custody my money with Tether when I can get custody with JP Morgan, right?
Yeah.
You would use a JP Morgan coin, obviously, right? And so I think that's the sort of trend is, you know, they've seen, okay, these are successful, or they're still around after however many years. They obviously aren't complete scams. So if literally all I have to do is, you know, have a ledger that I can do, I know how to do ledgers. I'm a bank, that's what they do. And then I, you know, put a token on some sort of, you know, layer 1 blockchain and let people trade it around. It's not that hard, and they'll all do it because it makes a lot of sense from a revenue perspective for them. And you'll see competition from the banks to Tether. If that's the only option that's available, and as a consumer is going to go with the bank, because the bank already has a license with the central bank to hold the money, so they don't have, it's not like one step removed. So
damn it.
But it doesn't matter. I don't know why people are like upset about this. It's like, it's the same thing.
Look, I ain't with Jamie Dimon, but I'm with you. Go ahead, bro. Look, Jamie and the rest of them go. Well, God bless him. God bless him.
Yeah.
So, and I guess at the end of the day, like all these sort of, you know, scrutiny around centralized exchanges, this, that, and the other, right? And I think I've argued this in many of my essays. It's, there's no one has a problem. TradFi doesn't have a problem with crypto, but the problem that we own it, right? They don't own it. And so how do you have this company that didn't exist 10 years ago that makes, I don't know, $10 billion a year, however much money Binance makes a year? These banks fucking bust their ass to make that kind of money, right? And so like, well, fuck this guy. And it's sort of a global standpoint, like, okay, why are we allowing, you know, our users, and the government is just another tech company, right? They need users, right? They need users. Why are we letting our users go over there and use this product? And this product uses our banking system to exist, because you got to send wires in somewhere at the end of the day. Well, fuck that. Let's do it ourselves, right? And so you're going to see the Fidelity-backed exchanges, the BlackRock-backed exchanges, and all this sort of stuff. Or they just buy the stocks.
I agree.
Right? This doesn't make any sense, right? And so, again, but obviously the good thing about all this is we have DeFi, right? And DeFi is the antidote to this, because, you know, centralized crypto exchanges will tend to the exact same structure that's in TradFi, but we have DeFi, which is something different. And so for somebody who doesn't like that, and they say, I want to have a decentralized way of transmitting value, we have Uniswap, we have SushiSwap, we have GMX, we have, you know, GNS, we have all these other different types of services that let you do the same thing, but it's non-custodial. It's the governance token holders decide how this is operated. And so you have a choice, right? We'll see who wins.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Do you see these stable coins being actually used on decentralized exchanges?
Decentralized exchanges don't care, right? If the users want to use it, then they use it. Who cares? The DEX doesn't care. They shouldn't care. They're agnostic to the asset. As long as it's on the L1 that they support, then they should be, and there's a liquidity pool that wants to trade it. That's the whole point. It's freedom of expression of humanity with each other, which is usually not what's allowed in traditional finance. They don't want freedom of expression on their exchanges. They want you to trade the stock they want you to trade because that's the one they're selling to you because they bought it much cheaper, right? That's how it works. So that is what a decentralization is supposed to be. There's good things and bad things on there.
And do you think the decentralized exchanges will be able to sort of survive regulation? Because recently we saw like
that's an open question, right? Is the system robust? Are they actually decentralized, or is it just some dude with a computer running on AWS claiming decentralization? We're gonna find out.
All right, awesome. What else? Could you talk about maybe your investment thesis in GMX? Because I saw.
I mean, it's an exchange. I like exchanges. They're building a new model, the perpetual. Not a new model. They're doing basically sort of a swap program with perpetuals. One of the first to do it. They do decent volume. Supposedly decentralized. I guess we'll find out. So yeah, I like the exchange business model. It's a very good business model if you get it right.
Yeah. Well, what else should we be looking at that you're currently looking at as well?
I mean, I think right now it's all about sort of have a view on the cycle, right? Because right now we're in sort of the depths of the bear market. Everybody is like, oh, when's Bitcoin going to move? Is it just going to go sideways like this, right? This is a time when, if you have a view of the future, this is when you want to be allocating, right? Because the prices are low, the interest is low. The last thing you want to be doing is buying charts that are going like this, right? Because the charts go like this, also goes like that real quick too. So the volatility for someone who's actually, has a 2 to 3 year view on where this is going is a good time right now to accumulate the things that you think are valuable.
Got you. All right, I think I'm pretty much done, Sinclair.
No, I think it's humbly, Brother Hayes. Anything that folks who want to be supportive or any of the work you're doing that they can, where they need to go, what they need to do to follow as well as be supportive. Again, that's the key part of what we do with the Black Blockchain Summit. We want to.
I mean, obviously, I want more people to read my stuff. I hope. I have a Substack, Crypto Haze, on Substack. You can also find the material on the BitMEX blog.bitmex.com, or my Twitter at Crypto Haze. I post all my stuff there. And then, again, just keep reading, because at the end of the day, it's your money. It's your financial freedom or not, right? There's nobody here is going to do it for you. You have to invest the effort, and there is no shortcuts, no easy button, this coin's definitely going to go up 100% tomorrow. I don't know. No one knows, right? Anyone who says they know is probably scamming you.
They're probably scamming. They got an easy button for you. It's probably a scam, Black. No doubt. Well, thank you, Brother Hayes and John. Look, I think this was awesome, man. Appreciate you, brother, and coming again, and definitely sister coming in town and being on the panel and be support. Thank you for your support, brother, of the Black Blockchain Summit. Without you, again, we can't be us. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.